Good morning, GCLS. For many of you, our keynote speaker, Lynn Ames, may seem to need no introduction. For others, this will be your first opportunity to get to know her. Lynn has worked in the media, in government, and in politics. Words are her superpower. She uses this superpower to take her life experience, the world around us, and her imagination to create stories that empower and inspire. She's an award-winning author of 16 novels and the soon-to-be-published biography of her dear friend, Hall of Fame softball player and bowler, Dot Wilkinson. Lynn is a storyteller. She's a truth teller. On the plane to Denver, I listened to a recent podcast interview with Lynn. She was asked about the difference between writing fiction and nonfiction. She said, to write the truth, you have to verify everything. And I thought, certainly in journalism and nonfiction, you have to verify every fact. But I would postulate that Lynn writes truth when she writes fiction. Her work invites deeper thought about what is and what could and what should be. We're at a pivotal time in our history. Our intersectional community is under attack across this and other countries. And today we're going to learn what we can do to fight back. We've done it before. We can and we must do it again. It's my absolute honor to welcome to the stage our keynote speaker, 6-time Goldie winner, winner of the Ann Bannon Award, Lynn Ames.
Whoa, hi. Does anybody mind? Because Melissa Braden says I need to do social media. And I do everything Melissa Braden tells me to do. Oh! I was really paying attention. Kind of. I thought I was, but I was posting on Instagram at the time. Good morning. Wow. What a gorgeous looking room full of us. All of us. There's something so comforting. Yeah. There is something so comforting in all of us being here together. Thanks, Betsy, for the most gracious, lovely introduction. Now that you've heard a little bit more about me, I'd like to learn a little bit more about you. So please humor me for just a minute. We're going to talk a lot about history today and our place in it. Before we do that, I'd like to place you all in history. You ready? This is interactive. Has anybody had coffee? I have not. Imagine me on coffee. Better yet, don't. If you were born before 1960, please stand if you're able or wave your arms in the air if you can't. Woo! Thank you. Thank you for blazing a trail for the rest of us to follow. Thank you for your courage, your resilience, your tenacity, and your strength. Without you, none of us would be gathered together here. Go ahead, give him a hand. I like this. If you were born between 1960 and 1975, please stand if you're able or wave your hands in the air. Thank you for picking up the baton and carrying it forward. Thank you for fighting for equality, for marching, for being visible, and for being an example. If you were born between 1975 and 1990, please stand if you're able or wave your hands in the air if you can. Thank you for your energy, your drive, your determination to stand up, speak out, and be heard. Anyone here born after 1990? Woo! You, my friends, are what we need now. Thank you for being here, for showing up, for being part of this community, and for bringing the energy that we're going to need for the rest of this fight forward. Thank you so much. Each of us brings to this sacred, safe space our own identities, our own truths, our own experiences of the world, and our place in it. And yet, for all our uniqueness, we share one common, overarching, burning need: to know that we're not alone, that we belong, that we are loved and cherished, not in spite of who we are, but because of who we are. It has always been thus. It has rarely been easy, and our path has never, ever been straightforward. Straightforward. Today, we find ourselves at an inflection point. More precisely, we find ourselves at yet another inflection point. After all, history is cyclical. It simply comes back around wearing a different face. Here's another truth. History doesn't happen in a vacuum. It has real-life, personal consequences, and our experiences and our interactions with history affect us individually in real time, shaping who we are, what we believe, and how we respond. That has never been more true than it is right now. If we want to understand, truly understand where we are now, how we got here, and how we turn this challenging time into triumph, we must understand where we've been. The past is prologue, and the answers and successful strategies we seek for today and tomorrow lie in the lessons we and the trailblazers who came before us learned along the way. I reflect on and mourn those who were hunted, sent to concentration camps, and killed in the Holocaust because they were different. An estimated 100,000, mostly gay men and lesbians, were arrested. 10 to 15,000 were sent to concentration camps. A full 65% of those never came home. During Joseph McCarthy's reign of terror here in the United States in the 1950s, thousands of LGBTQ individuals were persecuted and kicked out of government positions as security risks or blackballed in Hollywood for the crime of being homosexual. In 1953, President Eisenhower signed Executive Order 10450, banning homosexuals from working for the federal government as contractors. But it also was the beginning of a pushback. In the early 1950s, Christine Jorgensen received sex reassignment surgery in Copenhagen. She anticipated returning home to the United States to live a quiet, unremarkable life. Instead, her letters home to her parents in New York were intercepted by the New York Daily News, and her transition splashed in newspaper ink on the front page of the paper for all the world to see. Christine used her notoriety to speak out about transgender issues. She penned her autobiography in 1967, helping others to see themselves, perhaps for the very first time. Some brave lesbians and gays also began to make waves. In 1950, Harry Hayes founded the Mattachine Society, the first national gay rights organization. Also in 1950, Teresca Torres published her groundbreaking novel, Women's Barracks, largely biographical and originally written in French. Although not published in France, it sold 4 million copies. In 1952, Mary Jane Meeker released Springfire, the first lesbian paperback novel under the pseudonym Vin Packer, and was credited with igniting the lesbian pulp fiction genre. Also in 1952, writing as Claire Morgan, Patricia Highsmith published The Price of Salt, which, spoiler alert, has a semi-positive ending. Read that, the main character doesn't kill herself or get or stay married at the end of the book. Sorry, I hope you all have read that book already. Spoiler alert. In 1955 in San Francisco, the Daughters of Bilitis became the first lesbian rights organization in the U.S. Led by Del Martin and Phyllis Lyon, DOB's stated aim, according to Lillian Faderman in her brilliant book, The Gay Revolution, was, quote, to help the individual lesbian overcome isolation and fear, end quote. In 1956, Martin and Lyons added a magazine they called The Ladder. The magazine garnered hundreds of subscribers. The ownership of that list of subscribers became one of the more infamous stories in lesbian lore in the early 1970s, when former editor of The Ladder, Barbara Greer, used it to promote the fledgling Naiad Press. In 1957, our own beloved Anne Bannon bravely released Odd Girl Out, the first book in the Bebo Brinker Chronicles. All these events happened before I was born, believe it or not. I know it's hard, but work with me. Yet each of them in some way impacted my life, and most likely many of yours as well. I imagine as I share some of my own experiences this morning, in order to create historical context, many of you will be having your own déjà vu moments. I was born in 1960. Clearly, it was the most historic event of that decade. No. The 1960s featured seemingly endless raids on gay and lesbian bars and the wholesale rounding up of perverts and degenerates like us. We were beaten, arrested, and thrown in jail. Still, in 1964, when I was 4 years old, I did the math, Jane Rule's novel, The Desert of the Heart, with the first truly happy ending for lesbians, spoiler alert, found its way into circulation. I'm sad to say that although I loved to read, even back then, this one didn't get on my radar for many years. In 1967, at 7 years old and in the second grade, I knew I was different. I knew who I was. I didn't have the language for it, nor the capacity to name my difference. I had a massive crush on my teacher, Mrs. Bunny Werner, with her kind smile and streaked sandy blonde hair. I digress. In any event, I understood in all that confusion that I wasn't like all the other little girls and that I should keep that to myself. By the way, pro tip for today's extremists, back in those days, there were no classroom teachings about LGBTQ plus issues or books to read at any primary education level. It didn't matter. No one could have swayed me. It didn't matter. No one could have swayed me one way or the other. I was who I was. It was baked in. I was born that way. And no amount of draconian laws prohibiting teaching about gender identity or book bans could have changed that. Save me? Save today's children? From what? From what? Understanding who they are and why they feel the way they do, helping them to feel comfortable in their own skins, this is what we are saving them from. But I digress. Sorry. And of course, there were the Stonewall riots in late June 1969 that sparked the modern gay rights movement. Even though my family lived only 32 miles from the Stonewall Inn, it would be decades before I learned of that uprising and its significance. On June 28, 1970, celebrants of the one-year anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising marched through the streets of New York City into Central Park, giving birth to the first gay pride parade. On a personal note, in 1970, when the American Psychiatric Association's Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders still declared homosexuality as a mental illness, 1970, still a mental illness, a psychiatrist misdiagnosed me with gender dysphoria. I was 10. I was a tomboy, better than many of the boys on my block, I'm proud to say, where I was the only girl competing with them in every sport, and I dressed the part. Honestly, in my immature mind, I thought being a boy would keep me safer. Also, I wanted to blend in, to be invisible. That also seemed a safer option. By the way, 10 was the age when I wrote my first novel. Even then, I understood that writing and creating characters provided me with an outlet to escape, to be whoever I wanted to be, however I wanted to be. However I was. I could rescue the girl and live happily ever after, sitting alone upstairs in my oh-so-yellow room. That was the year my mother let me choose my own colors. Yellow shag carpeting, yellow walls, and you wonder why I didn't become an interior decorator. But say it with me, I digress. Thank you. In 1973, Rita Mae Brown published Ruby Fruit Jungle, and Anita Marchand, writing under the name Sarah Aldrich, engaged Barbara Greer, the former editor of the latter, to help her publish her novel, The Latecomer. The two, along with Anita's partner, Muriel Crawford, and Barbara's partner, Donna McBride, who is here today, I hope. Donna, thank you. Created Naiad Press, at first as a vehicle to get Marchand's book into print and circulation. And the rest of the story about Naiad and the lifeline its books provided to lesbians everywhere, as they say, is history. It is not hyperbole to say that without Naiad Press, Barbara Greer, and Donna McBride, who made lesbian fiction accessible and available to the masses, the lives of many of us right here in this room today would have been vastly different. In the late 1970s, Anita Bryant used the megaphone afforded her by her celebrity and stardom to crusade against us as abominations. If that wasn't bad enough, Betty Friedan of the National Organization of Women, I heard that, was busy doing everything in her power to denigrate lesbians and deny them a platform and a place within the burgeoning feminist movement. It's 1979 and I'm off to college. Hallelujah! I can reimagine and reinvent myself in a place where nobody knows my backstory. I've still never seen myself in the pages of a book at this point, and I still don't have the language to explain to myself or anyone else who I am, except that, by golly, I'm a survivor. And then it happens. A girl kisses me for the first time. Holy mother of pearls! Wow, wow, bells, whistles, steam coming out of my ears. I'm madly, deeply in love for the first time. There's only one problem. Well, trust me, there's more than one. But the neon sign blinking at me problem is that I've overheard chatter on my all-girls hall. They're whispering about two girls who they think are, you know, like that. Believe it or not, at 18, I still don't have the language to know what like that is called, but by the way they say it, I can clearly figure out what it means. And the one thing I know for absolute certain is that I never, ever want to be talked about like those poor girls. The clear as a bell message to me is this: there's something wrong with you. But now that I've finally figured it out, sort of, I'm sure as heck not going to give up this girl-kissing loving business. So the takeaway for me is hide, hide. Oh, and we do, my girlfriend and I, right there in plain sight. We check by looking for feet in every stall and steal clandestine kisses in the women's room in the dining hall. Don't tell anybody. By leaning against the door and blocking anyone else from coming in. This is a true story. We wait until our roommates are out and make time together. We travel far away from campus and steam up the car windows on winter nights parked in out-of-the-way parking lots. You get the idea. But I digress. In the summer of 1980, we decide to get in the car, drive to this place we've heard about called Provincetown, and camp outside of town at Nickerson State Park, lest anyone think we were actually intentionally in a place lesbians are known to frequent. Our first trip into downtown P-Town is eye-opening. Women are actually holding hands in public. We gawk in wonder, tentatively, just once or twice. We try it out ourselves, and then just as quickly we drop our hands guiltily to our sides. We wander down a side street and into a quaint little bookshop called Women Crafts. We leave quickly when we overhear the proprietor offering a woman checking out at the counter a lesbian discount. How did she know? What if she said that to us? The pièce de résistance of the trip, though, is when we stop to eat lunch outdoors at a restaurant on Commercial Street. As we're about to be seated, I virtually lose the lunch I haven't yet been served when I recognize one of the servers as a girl I grew up with. What if she saw us? We leave town. It will be 3 years before I step foot back into Provincetown and buy my very first lesbian book. Yes, in Women Crafts. The book is Amateur City by Catherine V. Forrest. I'm going to try not to cry here. It literally is life-changing for me. It's 1984. I am 23, about to be 24 years old, and it's the first time I've ever seen anyone like me in the pages of a book. Catherine, my dear friend, where are you? Where are you? Hi. Along with so many others, I thank you for saving my life. I thank you for telling me that I was not alone and that there was nothing wrong with me. I love you from the bottom of my heart. Your courage has changed so many lives for the better. But I thank you for saving me the word. My girlfriend and I stay together the entire time we're in college. It's heaven, even as fraught as it feels. We never get caught. Well, if you don't count her father rifling through her bedroom drawers the summer of our sophomore year and finding our love letters and accusing me of being a pervert who's trying to convert his little girl. Sing it out. But I digress. A week before graduation, 1 week, my girlfriend comes back to the room and announces, I've signed up for the Peace Corps. I'm going to West Africa for 2 years. Huh? I know, right? There was no discussion about it. No, what would you think if I? No, I'll come back for you. Just, yeah, I'm out of here. It's been nice. Straight out of the blue. But we're so deeply in the closet, nobody knows about us. Nobody knows about us. So I spend our last few nights together crying my eyes out in private and putting ice cubes on them to keep the swelling down so no one will notice. The night before graduation, I get no sleep, 0. We silently pack our trunks. Our families have shown up, all happy for the graduation celebration. And all I want is for time to stop. My mother's angry because I seem off. And I haven't finished packing, and I don't appear to be grateful enough that my grandmother and my parents have come all this way to celebrate this happy occasion. Finally, almost all the other graduates and families have said their goodbyes and vacated the parking lot after the ceremony, and here we are, standing awkwardly, surrounded by family that has no earthly idea that I am dying inside. My soon-to-be no-more girlfriend hugs me from about 5 feet away, with everyone, and we've all been there, right? With everyone looking on, and pats me on the shoulder. Then she gets into her father's car and she's gone. My whole life is gone in a puff of Vermont spring mud flying up off a gravel parking lot. It's May 25th, not that I remember the day, 1982. I'm not bitter. The next day, I'm due to start my first adult job as a journalist and radio news anchor for an AM news talk FM classic rock radio station in Albany, New York. My parents get in their car, I get into mine. We caravan to my new tiny studio apartment that I can't afford. We buy me a fold-out couch and a dresser. They leave. I spend the remainder of the day and night crying inconsolably, alone. What will I do? I can't talk to anyone about what is going on for me. No one. And I believe I must be the only person, like that in the universe. Have we all been there at some point? I spend a couple of years trying to straighten myself out. To be otherwise would get me fired. And besides, I want more than anything to fit in and be like everyone else. After all, who wants to spend her life being persecuted for her difference? Life would be so much easier if I just settled down with a nice guy. Spoiler alert, although he is a nice guy, it doesn't work out. In the back of Amateur City, the book I purchased in P-Town and for which, incidentally, I did receive the 10% lesbian discount. But I paid cash because somebody might be able to trace my credit card, was a list of a few of the publications from Naiad Press. There's a P.O. address box address in Tallahassee, Florida, and a phone number. Below the phone number in italics are the words, "Mail orders welcome. Please include 15% postage." What? I can order these kinds of books and they'll be delivered to my house? But then the mailman would know about me. But I really need to read more. The struggle's real, people. I do the only thing I can think to do. I call the number. A gruff voice answers the phone. I explain my conundrum. The gruff-voiced woman identifies herself as Barbara Greer and assures me that no one, except for me, will know what's in the plain brown bag or wrapper in which the books or catalogs are packaged. There's a catalog? What? Oh, yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus. Oh. I order my next book, eager to rip open the nondescript package when it arrives, and lo and behold, my very first Naiad catalog is inside, along with my next read. Every month, I wait with anticipation for my next Naiad catalog and carefully read the descriptions of each book, filling out my next order form in the process. I am completely, utterly hooked. In the summer of 1984, I got invited to the White House to have lunch with Ronald Reagan. Yes, it's true. He wanted to meet a select group of radio journalists, an invitation to have lunch with the President of the United States. Yes, I hated his politics and his policies, but still, I said yes, of course. And then I found out that I'd have to undergo a Secret Service background check. I completely freaked out. What if they discovered I was a lesbian? They fingerprinted me, questioned me, spoke with references. When I got the call that I'd been cleared to come to the White House, my knees literally buckled in relief. Later in 1984, a running buddy inadvertently and unknowingly introduced me to my next girlfriend. By this time, having read enough Naiad books, I knew with certainty who I was. While I knew there was nothing wrong with me, because Catherine told me there was nothing wrong with me, I also knew that I could lose my job and get my head bashed in for being who and what I was. I remained resolutely silent. This relationship lasted less than 2 years, but I mention it because the aftermath speaks to how societal norms and the political and legal realities of the time shaped my sense of well-being, and how deeply rooted was my fear of discovery and any attendant reaction to the truth of my sexuality. Being jilted sent me into a tizzy. I stopped eating. I exercised myself into the ground. Oh, if I could stop eating now. I wouldn't tell anyone what was going on with me. I suffered in silence as the world spun on, and I pretended that nothing was wrong and my whole life hadn't just fallen apart. As news director and morning anchor in the capital of the state of New York, I had lots of interaction with the most visible politicians of the day. I'd been covering Governor Mario Cuomo for several years. I'd interviewed him countless times. I played basketball with him in the driveway of the executive mansion. I played on a celebrity softball team against his team. He'd taken a special interest in me. Sometimes he would call me at home and leave funny messages on my answering machine. In the aftermath of the breakup, I lost a lot of weight. I got down to 98 pounds. One day, I was standing on the tarmac after the governor answered some of our press questions. The governor had walked away. He'd boarded his plane. I was getting ready to leave. We all were. Suddenly, the door to the plane, which had been sealed for takeoff, opened, and the governor's press secretary came down the steps. She called me out and came directly to me. "The governor wants me to ask you if you're okay. He's concerned because you don't look well. He's worried something's wrong with your health." I was stunned. What should I say? "I'm fine, thanks, just suffering from a broken heart because my girlfriend left me?" That didn't seem wise. Instead, I muttered that I was fine and please thank the governor for his concern. Around the same time, in early 1986, I flew here to Denver for a skiing vacation. I hoped that the time away would help me heal, and I was excited that I would get to spend time with one of my best friends, Marcia Neville, a KCNC Denver sports anchor, women's sports reporter, the very first women's sports reporter in the state of Colorado and maybe the entire Rocky region. Thank you, my friend, for breaking glass ceilings. I love you to pieces. I had befriended Marcia when she was a sports anchor in Albany a few years earlier. We were best buddies. Although Marcia was one of my best friends, I'd never told her I was gay. Never told her I was gay. I didn't want to risk our friendship. Naturally, I certainly hadn't told her I was nursing a broken heart. I did my best to stay present and enjoy our time together. I thought I'd pulled it off. But several days after I arrived home, and I know you'll remember this when I say it, I received a stunning, breath-stealing handwritten letter from Marcia. It will suffice to say that I most obviously hadn't pulled it off, but without any real information to work with, my dear, dear friend had, through no fault of her own, completely misconstrued what was going on with me. What she assumed based on my behavior wasn't pretty. I was devastated. I was about to lose one of my best friends who wanted nothing more to do with me. After much deliberation, having determined that I was going to lose her friendship anyway, I sat down and wrote back to her. I poured my heart out. I explained everything, including why I'd been so remote and seemingly standoffish. After all, I had nothing to lose with Marcia by telling her the truth, that I was a lesbian, that I was frightened to pieces to tell her, and that I was brokenhearted. I don't think it took 5 minutes after she received my letter for her to call me on the phone. After telling me I should write for a living, she proceeded to apologize for her assumptions about who I'd become and gently berated me for not telling her the truth in the first place. Actually, it wasn't so gentle, really. You weren't so gentle. She didn't care in the least that I was a lesbian, and didn't I trust our friendship enough to know that? As you can see, that story has a very happy ending. 41 years after we became fast friends, 37 years since that fateful visit to Denver, we're still the kind of friends who can go a decade without seeing each other and pick up as if we had never left off. The mid-1980s brought with it the scourge of AIDS and its attendant deaths. So many deaths. As AIDS began to decimate the gay male population, gay men became vilified. Does this sound familiar? They were pariahs, and they were dying by the tens of thousands. President Ronald Reagan, for years, refused even to utter the word AIDS, never mind direct resources to help the afflicted. March 12th, 1987, Act Up. Right. Yes. The AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power was created. The group, born in New York, was best known for its radical, outrageous stunts to draw attention to the crisis. Although there were many female activists who joined the fight, a 1989 survey of the group proved that it was largely made up of white, privileged, middle-class gay men under the age of 35. 1 month later, I became press secretary to the New York State Senate Minority Leader, Democrat Fred Orenstein of New York. Again, I had to undergo a thorough background check, this time by the New York State Police. Again, I worried that they would discover that I was a lesbian. Again, I wept with relief when their check turned up nothing incriminating. Fred's district encompassed Greenwich Village and Chelsea. He was as progressive as any politician of the day. I believed that from this position, in a seat of power, I could help affect change. I was young, just 27, and idealistic, some would say naive, in what I thought I could accomplish. I wrote what I believed would have been the first statewide domestic partner benefits legislation. It went nowhere. I watched as Fred and his Democratic colleagues tried to work with allies with little success to help those suffering from AIDS. That summer, since I was no longer a visible broadcast celebrity, I decided it might be safe enough for me to go to a lesbian bar for the very first time. I'd heard of one in the next city over where some of the women I'd been playing adult league basketball with went sometimes talk about a cliche. I'm a walking cliche. Like so many gay and lesbian bars at the time, the Falcon was out of the way, had no street-facing windows, and no visible signage. I stepped into the smoky darkness, paid the cover charge, and stood glued with my back to the bar, scared to death. A woman asked me to dance and laughed at my discomfort. She promised she wouldn't bite. We laughed over it. I didn't know that was a thing. We laughed over it and became friends. Word got back to the basketball leaguers, guess who's a lesbian? Apparently, they'd been speculating for quite a while. Who knew? One of them asked me out. It turned into a 16-year relationship. Spoiler alert, we break up in 2003, and I spent my time healing by writing what would become my first published novel, The Price of Fame. It's cathartic. Sing it out loud. But I digress. Her friends became our friends. We would socialize at group parties at each other's houses, vacation in Provincetown together with a group of other lesbians and gay guys, and go dancing at the local lesbian bar. Being in a relationship with her, however, made it harder for me to stay in the closet. We moved in together. I decided to come out to my parents. My mother came to visit. I had determined that I was going to tell her. My partner, who was deeply, deeply closeted, couldn't face my mother. She disappeared for the day. She went to watch movies with her mother. I tried to tell my mother multiple times during the day, but each time she interrupted me and changed the topic. It had taken me weeks to work up the courage to do this. By the time she and I left for dinner at a restaurant alone, I was determined to get it done. She was driving. As she rounded a curve, I blurted out, "Mom, I've got something I've been trying to tell you all day. I'm a lesbian." My mother nearly accidentally drove us into a ditch. I do not recommend coming out this way. I lived. Spoiler alert. Still, the first thing that happened was that she cried. Why are you crying? Because it must be so hard for you. Of all the reactions I might have expected, of all the doomsday scenarios I had built up in my mind over the years, that my mother would accept this aspect of me so fully and compassionately never once crossed my mind. When we reached the restaurant, she handed me a quarter. Some of you in this room will remember what this means. The rest of you, stay tuned. What's that for? This is for you, born after 1990. Go call your partner and tell her it's okay. Payphones, people. For those of you who don't know. The old-fashioned cell phone. Then she told me not to worry. She'd tell my father for me when she got home. A week later, I got a letter from my father telling me that on some level they'd always known and that it didn't matter to him in the least. Even though I was now out to my parents, though, I remained firmly in the closet at work. This was the height of AIDS hysteria. Several times on my way to my office on the 3rd floor of the Capitol, ACT UP protesters blocked the hallways. They chained themselves to the door of the state Senate in protest over AIDS policies, chanting and demanding action. Some of these people were my personal friends. On one hand, I felt immense guilt that I wasn't brave enough to be out there protesting with them. On the other hand, I believed I could affect more change and do more good from the inside with a seat at the table, advocating for people with AIDS from a position of compassion and doing the right thing without any apparent agenda of my own. Oh, the lies I told myself to make myself feel better about what I was doing and what I wasn't risking. A frisson of fear ran through me as I literally had to step over them to get to my office. What if they gave me away? But they never did. I left the Senate in 1989 and became spokesperson for the New York State Department of Correctional Services, the third largest prison system in the country. I was the first woman ever to hold that position. In a male-dominated, toxically misogynistic environment, I got to work earlier, I left later, and worked 3 times as hard just to prove I deserved to be where I was. Democrat Mario Cuomo was still governor, but he had installed a hard-nosed, homophobic, transphobic Republican as commissioner of the prison system, my boss. It was more dangerous than ever for me to come out at work. Beyond that, my partner was still so deeply closeted, even to her family, and even though we owned a home and 2 dogs together, that giving myself away was not an option. It would have meant outing her, too. I'd been on the job exactly 1 month, when I arrived at my desk at my usual 6:30 a.m., in the middle of the desk was a press release. The commissioner drafted it himself, something he never did. He'd scribbled on a note instructing me to release the statement to all major media outlets right away. As I read through this press release, my heart sank. AIDS was running rampant in the 68 New York State prisons. The prisons, as was true everywhere at the time and is still mostly true today, were overwhelmingly filled with a disproportionate number of people of color. Many of them were suffering with AIDS. It was an outrage to me. At the time, they were being given inadequate treatment and were being refused the use of condoms and conjugal visits. Virginia Ginny Apuzzo was an ardent, strident, outspoken lesbian. She'd achieved notoriety as an AIDS activist, was a frequent guest on major national news programs, and was a former executive director of the National LGBTQ Task Force. In 1989, she was vice chair of the New York State AIDS Advisory Council. She never backed down from a fight. We had crossed paths many times when I was in the Senate. We also had mutual friends. For months, Ginny and my boss had been engaged in an escalating, very public feud over AIDS protocols, practices, and treatment of inmates with AIDS in the prisons. The press release the commissioner had drafted and placed on my desk was a vitriolic, very personal, in my opinion, very unprofessional attack on Ginny, thinly veiled as a policy statement. I'd been on the job for 30 days, but I had to do something. I couldn't let this press release go out as it was written. I quickly revised it, removing all of the personal attacks and focusing solely on the policy issues. I asked to meet with the commissioner. It was 7 a.m. I handed him my revisions across the expanse of his massive cherry desk. No symbolism there. I could see the red pushing up his neck from under his shirt collar. I stood my ground. Your message will be lost behind the personal attacks. All the press will focus on will be an open feud between 2 of the governor's appointees. Not only will that piss him off, but you won't achieve your ultimate objective, which is to win on the merits of your argument. You'd have bought that, right? I thought it sounded good. The commissioner was furious at me. Still, my argument was sound, right? In the end, I got him to delete all of the personal vitriol save 1 paragraph. It was the best I could do. But the statement would go out with me as the contact person, meaning it would look for all the world as though I had drafted this statement. I was heartsick. Not only was Ginny a fellow lesbian, but I truly felt that there was no place for personal attacks in a professional environment. After a few minutes, I did something that under any other circumstances I never would have dreamed of doing. I picked up the phone and I dialed Ginny's number. I warned her that the commissioner had demanded that I put out a statement, and without reading it to her, because that would have been incredibly unethical, I told her enough to help her. She listened and asked me what she should tell the media when they called her. I advised her what I thought her response should be, another thing that in any other universe I never would have done. She thanked me and hung up. My hands were trembling. What I'd just done was easily grounds for dismissal. Easily grounds for dismissal. I risked my job as the second most visible spokesperson in state government to do what I thought was best for Ginny under the circumstances. I put out the statement. The media's reaction was swift, so was Ginny's. She was incensed. Obviously, she must not have handled the press very well because her reaction told me that she didn't feel as though the stories would make her look very good. Through our mutual friend, also a highly visible lesbian, Ginny demanded to see me. She demanded that I show up in her office all the way across town within the hour. It was 9:20 a.m. and I was in the middle of my workday. What possible excuse could I give to leave my office? It was impossible. I'd already risked everything just to give her a heads up. I told my friend so. She informed me that Ginny was threatening to out me publicly in retaliation. In 1989, the controversial practice of outing celebrities and other high-profile individuals was, of course, rampant. Read it in the history books if you weren't there. Now, I got angry. I can't remember what excuse I made or if I just slipped out of the office and hoped that no one would notice. But I made the drive across town, and I swept into Ginny's office. She sat in her executive chair using the full force of her position to intimidate me. Her eyes were flashing in anger. "I'm going to out you. How dare you do this to me?" I leaned across the desk, my hands splayed on the surface. "You have no idea how bad that statement was before I edited it. I risked my career for you this morning. I don't care," she bellowed. All I could think about was my partner, so deeply in the closet, who would get thrown out along with me. I was outraged on her behalf. "I don't give a rat's ass if you out me, but my partner has nothing to do with this, and you'll be outing her too. She's done nothing to deserve that." I was breathing fire. If you do this, I'll out myself before you can do it, and I'll tell everyone that you threatened me. You, the great lesbian advocate, weaponizing my sexuality, doing exactly what we accuse straight people of doing. I'm sure the press will love that. Go ahead, make my day. We stared at each other a very long beat, each of our chests heaving, still heaving, still heaving. In the end, she blinked first. "I won't out you this time. But if anything like this ever happens again, ... I walked out without saying goodbye, drove back across town, and slipped back into my office. As far as I know, no one, except now all of you, ever learned of that episode. In 1991, when I left my position at the prison system, Ginny called me. She wanted me to know that there were no hard feelings, and that she really respected me for the way I stood up to her. She also asked me for dirt on my boss. I told her I had no comment. It was years before we ever spoke to one another again. And for many of you, if you go look in the history books, she went to work for the Clinton White House as their liaison to the gay and lesbian community. And the hands of time marched on. The 1990s ushered in Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the Defense of Marriage Act. In 1995, Xena and Gabrielle. With all their glorious subtext, burst onto the scene, firing our imaginations and spawning a new era of lesbian fiction. In 1997, Ellen DeGeneres came out on the cover of Time magazine. In a groundbreaking moment for television, her character on her sitcom also came out in the same time frame. On a personal note, in 1997, as vice president of the New York Credit Union Association, I came out publicly at work in order to advocate for new human resources policies, including sexual orientation as a protected class under the organization's discrimination and partner health benefits clauses. That took a while, right? In 1998, the shocking, horrific death of Matthew Shepard, tortured and left to die tied to a fence post in Laramie, Wyoming for the sin of being gay. Matthew Shepard's death forced a reckoning and galvanized governmental action, eventually resulting in federal hate crimes legislation. In 2000, Vermont, where I went to college, became the first state in the U.S. to legalize civil unions. In 2003, in Lawrence versus Texas, a sane Supreme Court ruled that sodomy laws in the U.S. are unconstitutional. In 2004, Massachusetts became the first state to legalize gay marriage. 4 states in the District of Columbia followed suit in the next 6 years. Predictably, there was pushback. In 2008, California voters approved Proposition 8, making same-sex marriage illegal in that state. On August 4th, 2010, a federal judge in San Francisco ruled that gays and lesbians have the right to marry and that Prop 8 was unconstitutional. The challenge proceeded through the courts. In 2011, New York State passed the Marriage Equality Act, my home state. On June 26, 2013, thanks to Edie Windsor in the United States versus Windsor, the Defense of Marriage Act was ruled unconstitutional. And on June 26, 2015, exactly 2 years later, in Obergefell versus Hodges, the U.S. Supreme Court declared same-sex marriage legal in all 50 states. I'm getting to the punchline, folks. Bear with me. What does it all mean? What are the takeaways? What lessons did we learn from all of that that will help us in today's fraught times? The 1950s, 60s, 70s, and even the early 80s, these are what I call the every other for themselves decades. Gay men focused almost exclusively on their own struggles and lifting themselves up. They took up almost all the oxygen in every joint endeavor with their lesbian counterparts. Male entitlement, particularly white male privilege, was the order of the day. Lesbians scrambled and clawed for a seat at the table. In short, gay white men were fighting one battle, attacks on their homosexuality. As men, they still retained their male privilege in the work world. And lesbians? Well, lesbians were doubly challenged. They were women in a man's world. So first and foremost, they had to fight to be recognized as equals on that level. And on top of that, they had to fight the sexuality stigma. For LGBTQ plus people of color, they were triply disadvantaged. Trans folks and everyone in between, they were on their own. As AIDS began to decimate the gay male population, it was their lesbian sisters, in many instances, that held their hands, brought them food, spoke up and spoke out, and treated them with the dignity that they deserved. In short, the G and the L came to recognize that what they wanted was the same thing, to be treated with dignity, respect, and worth as human beings. They were more alike than they knew, and there was more strength and a bigger impact when they combined voices to speak with one voice. They began to work together and to support one another, to be less dismissive and more inclusive. And things, lo and behold, began to shift. They began to realize that there is no us and them. Here are some truths for you all. If it were not for the trans women standing up and throwing the first brick at Stonewall, we would not, any of us, be where we are today. If it were not for the brave lesbians stepping in to give comfort and care and standing with their gay brothers, where would the gay men have been during the AIDS crisis? If it were not for Edie Windsor, my dear friends and fellow lesbians Nelda Majors and Karen Bailey, and gay man Jim Obergefell courageously fighting for our right to marry whom we love, we would not be where we are today. If it were not for our bi sisters and brothers, our non-binary, gender non-conforming, queer and queer-supporting, straight friends and allies standing with us, how much weaker and less powerful would our community be? Let me put this in some perspective for you. There was a time not too long ago, in fact, when being caught in a lesbian bar wearing a non-feminine article of clothing meant getting thrown in jail. Less than 25 years ago, it was literally illegal in some states in the U.S. to make love to your same-sex partner. And marrying someone of the same gender? Out of the question. What changed? We did. We did. We began organizing, standing together as one whole alphabet rather than individual letters. Shoulder to shoulder in greater and greater numbers, we came out. We spoke out. We told our personal stories, even if it was just to ourselves at first, and then to one other person, and another, and another. We put names and faces to the letters LGBTQ+. We wrote more books and made more television shows and movies with queer characters who weren't monsters. We marched, we voted, we gave our hard-earned money to companies and brands who supported us. Our superpower was our voices and our stories. In the telling, we humanized ourselves. We reached out and touched family members and friends who didn't know they knew someone like us. Once they did, they couldn't unknow that about us. Oh my God. Imagine they loved and cared about someone who was one of them. Now what? In the end, they figured out what we knew all along. We're all as one. At the end of the day, it turns out, we all want the same things that they want, to be loved and to love and to live our lives peacefully, to create families of our own choosing, to be successful and productive and good citizens. Imagine that. We're normal. Well, except that we're smarter, better dressed, more discerning, more accepting, and empathetic. Just saying. Let me pause to ask you a question. You're still awake, right? All right. Whew. I haven't had any coffee, folks. Why are you here? Why are you here? Not in the big existential sense. Why are you here at this conference? Authors, why do you write what you write? You could write anything. Why do you write about us? Readers, why do you read? You could read anything. Why do you read our stories? What we, all of us in this room, do, especially now, is an act of courage. It's an act of courage, people. It's an act of defiance. It's an act of bravery. I want you all to think about that for a while, but not right now. Save it. Cheryl and I, my wife, have been having deep, hard discussions lately. How did we get here again? To this place where we are under siege for who we are, who and how we love, where we can go to the bathroom, and whether or not it's safe for children to know anything about LGBTQ+ individuals, or whether we can have open discussions about these things. We ask what it is we can do about these dangerous times. Not in the broader sense as in what has to be done about it, but what we personally can do on a micro level. The answer is really quite simple, it turns out, with the caveat that personal safety comes first. We can be us, openly, unapologetically, visibly us. We can stand together, band together with our trans, non-binary, gender fluid, gay, lesbian, asexual, queer family, and show people that we are their neighbors, their friends, their children, their loved ones, their teachers, their students. We are no different, and certainly not a threat to them and their way of life. We must tell our stories, show our faces, lead by example, write our stories, tell our stories, read, and make available to others to read in order to help them to do what we know is the most important thing. Think critically, learn, and remain open to experiences beyond our own. We must do the same in our own community. It starts right here at home. We must recognize, respect, and lift each other up. Every letter of the alphabet, every color of the rainbow, every color of our skin. We are all as one. I understand why some lesbians worry about erasure. It's PTSD. Been there, experienced that. Never again. I get it. I just gave you the historical context for it. Still, think about this. We all, each letter of our glorious alphabet, have always been here. At various times throughout our history, we have each had to fight to create or find the language to define ourselves, not just for others, but to ourselves, and then to get others to use and validate not just the terms, but to see and celebrate the individuals as they are. This has been true for gay men. It has been true for lesbians, for bisexuals, for our trans siblings, and it has been true in our reclamation of the term queer. This is an extraordinary time of growth and expansion in our community. Those who have never fit quite comfortably or felt at home under the traditional labels are inventing new language, new ways to define and identify themselves, to present themselves, and to be seen, respected, and celebrated. As history has taught us, this takes nothing away from any existing group. It only broadens our understanding and strengthens all of us. We are at the forefront of creating the next significant historical inflection point. This is a moment of rising up together, pronouncing each letter of our beautiful alphabet succinctly and with great pride, and saying, we all stand together. We are all as one. Thank you. You all rock. Can you do the wave too? I'm more than happy to sit down for a minute if you don't mind. I can't feel my feet anymore. New shoes. What was that? Oh, God bless you, child. I'm happy to sit down and take some questions if you have them, and remember that I make shit up for a living. No. Shut up. I do not need a ladder. Hi, my name is Edith Ann, and I'm 6 years old. So for the people born after 1990, that's a bit. Look it up on YouTube. What was that? Lily Tomlin. Oh, God bless her. God bless her. Hi, everybody. Hi. It's great to see you all, and it's great to be among you. What a fabulous community we have. The energy this week is just remarkable. You all rock. You should give yourselves a huge round of applause. To all the panelists this week and the author readers and the presenters, all of you did a great job. You were really inspiring to me. and to the board, and to Judy Camella. Thank you all for an incredible conference. You guys rock. So, throw me a softball. Get it? You know what? Puns are us. Hi, Jenny.
Hello, Lynn. I cannot tell you both how wonderful and difficult that was for me. I was born in 1948, so you can imagine what happened. I was married to a gay man who died, me holding his hand. I think about my sister who's older who says, my God, she's not a lesbian. She says, but we fought all this before. And she now understands how so much of what we're experiencing has to do with us, but to women in general, and other people who are again being disenfranchised. And so I suppose I have a question, but being
That's good.
75 next week,
Happy
I don't
birthday.
remember. Actually, next month, I don't remember quite what it was, but it was wonderful to see all the age groups.
Yeah,
stood
isn't that
here.
great?
It really was, and I almost stood up at those who were born over, like 1990, but I decided that was never going to happen. But PTSD was the thing that caught me most, okay? And what had happened to us. I'm very, K.G. McGregor sort of dragged me out of the closet. I came kicking and screaming. But there's 7 years difference in our ages, and that makes such a difference. I was outed before I knew her, but what Knight Ridder did was rewrite its policy to include domestic partners.
Oh, great.
Nothing has ever happened to me, really, that was more gratifying.
Yeah.
Because Tony Ritter and Jim Batten said, oh, she's one of them? More than anything, she's one of us.
Thank you for that. Aw. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, some of the media companies were at the forefront of stepping out and recognizing us, which is important because they have such a megaphone, don't they? There's a microphone, as you can see, in the center of the room if you've got a question, so those whose hearing is not as great can actually hear you, me included, because when I get off an airplane, I can't hear anything for 3 days. We're on day 8, and I'm still working on it. It's a work in progress, but I'm not 20 anymore. Please ask questions. Please, let's have a discussion. Oh, no. Anybody but you.
Story of my life. I never listen.
No.
All right. First, keep this together. You've changed my life.
Oh, honey.
As a mentor, as a friend, I feel seen. I feel validated. And I also want to thank all of you for making me feel welcome in community. This is our community. We lift each other up. We inspire each other. We push each other. We challenge each other. And the one thing you've done for me is you challenged me more than anybody but my wife. And poor Lisa. So my question for you is...
Well, wait, first let me say that you make me a better person. You made me a better mentor. You made me a better person. So thank you.
Oh my God, I've been I keep this together.
I was her mentor for the Writing Academy a couple of years ago.
I think I've been crying for the last hour.
I just want to see you cry ugly. I gotta say, over something other than an editing comment.
Thank you. I mean, this shirt says write drunk, edit sober. I'm still never been sober. Thank you very much. All right, get it together, Gallagher.
You got
okay.
this.
Question for you is,
Sure.
all the things you've seen, all the experiences you've had,
Yes.
as someone who's also on the inside, what was the most frustrating, mind-numbingly, wanna-punch-a-fucking-wall thing that
What
you
have I
went
told you
through?
about swearing?
God damn it, I'm sorry. Fuck, I forgot.
You don't want to know how many cuss words I took out of her manuscript.
Okay,
You're welcome.
you're welcome. True story, she said, I had the word fuck ton in my manuscript. She goes, there's a fuck ton of cursing in here. And I said, look, I'm gonna challenge you here. No, I need those words, I need them. No, you fucking don't, try it. There are 0 cuss words, not even hell right now in my manuscript. Back to the question at hand, love.
Yes, we digress.
Say it with her. We digress.
Thank you.
What is the most mind-numbing thing that you experienced, that you're seeing now, that you can help someone like me who is pissed off as all hell on the outside, but can make change on the inside for our friends, especially our trans friends at this moment?
Thank you for the question. Foot cramp. I'm not sitting anymore, just in case you were wondering.
I always
know
get
it
you
looks
fired up.
It looks the same, either way. But there you go. Here's what I'm going to say to you, and I'll say it to everybody in the room. And I actually thought about having a handout for all of you at the end of this, but I decided against it. But you can all contact me anytime, and I'm happy. Everyone here has a role to play. Every one of us has a superpower. Not all of our superpowers are the same, but we all have them. So what I'm going to say to you is, within your comfort zone, and maybe just a little beyond your comfort zone, pick an activity, pick something that can make a difference to someone else. Cheryl and I recently went to a school board meeting, for instance, in North Carolina. Ooh, brave stuff. But I had Cheryl. She's my super weapon. Who doesn't love Cheryl? This one woman behind us staring daggers at her because how dare lesbians come to their meeting? Wow. The vitriol that was spewed in that room was unbelievable. I mean, the lies, the crap, the litter boxes in bathrooms. The boys are in the girls' bathroom, and they're going to bathroom in litter boxes, and what will become of our children? And it was our first school board meeting, so we didn't sign up to speak because we didn't know what the protocol was. You know, we didn't figure it out yet. But I'm going to tell you right now that one of the things that we're going to do is go right back to that school board at the next meeting, and we're going to speak, and they will hear us. They will hear our voices and our stories, and they will know that my books are the kind of books they're banning. And I will tell them what I told you today. I knew who I was at 7. I didn't need a book. I didn't need to be taught in class. And you're not teaching me does not change who these kids are. All it does is leave them confused and wondering and feeling like there's something wrong with them. It's not wrong with them, it's wrong with you. That's what's wrong. So, my challenge to you all is do something. If it's hold hands somewhere, if it's mention your partner, if it's say, you know, even if you're not comfortable outing yourselves in whatever environment you're in, you can talk in broad, general terms about what's going on for women, for trans folks, for all of us. Speak with empathy and mirror who we are so that they can recognize. This is what changed for us before. What changed for us before was now everyone knows someone who's gay or lesbian. What they don't know is that they also know all these other people and have been living and working with them all this time. We must all wrap our friends up and stand with them and stand for them and speak out for them, because we have to speak out for each other, every letter of the alphabet. The reason they're not attacking gays and lesbians as much right now is because they know us. They have us in their families. The same is not true for non-binary, genderqueer. You go through it. I haven't had coffee. But You understand what I'm saying. They think they don't know you, but they do. They just don't know they do. So we have to find ways to normalize that as much as we have normalized the L and the G. This has to become everyday conversation for everyone in this room. And every one of our friends out there, it has to multiply out and out and out. We have to be brave. We have to be courageous. Stay safe while you do it, please, but do it. Find one courageous thing to do. If you're a writer, sit down and write the book. Give those kids something to read. Give others something to read. Be inclusive in your writing. Do your homework. Do your research. Talk to your friends so you're accurate, so that you're representing. Okay? Everybody wants to help everybody else get this right. No one wants to see anybody else fail. Let's get it right. Let's tell our stories. Let's read our stories. Leave a book on someone's doorstep, for God's sake, and run away. Don't. I never did that, except on Halloween, maybe, once. Find a way that's within your reach that doesn't, make you hyperventilate. Or maybe it does. To do something, to be the change you want to see. Because that's the only way we're going to get where we need to go, is to be that voice, that change. That's why we're here. It's why we write what we write. It's why we read what we read. We have to be the next ones who save the next lives. That has to be us. It's on us. So let's do it. What? Hi, Patty. My friend.
Hi, Miss Lynn. How you doing?
I'm doing great. You?
I'm all right.
Okay.
Oh, shit, sorry. No cussing? Was that what that you were told? No
Yeah.
cussing?
Just don't.
Yeah, fuck that.
Hey,
Just,
I'm going to
Hey,
wash
now-
your mouth out with soap.
now, I have known her since the first con when I took a picture of her in the middle of the hotel lobby in her leather. So, suck it.
You had to bring it up.
I'm still looking for that picture because it was printed. It wasn't on a phone. It was on a real camera with
Thank God.
film. It is not on the internet, so don't go looking.
Thank you.
We didn't put pictures up yet. Anyway, what I wanted to say to you, my friend.
You digress. Yes.
What is it? Oh my God, that's going to be the catchphrase for the rest of the day.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. What I wanted to say to you, my friend, is I have known you for more than almost 20 years.
And I'm only 20.
I know,
Yeah,
I know.
remarkable.
You were like a baby dyke when I met you. And I have followed you in all your books, read every single word you've ever written, because I love you. And it only really hit me today listening to you give us our history, which I knew because I needed that information when I was 35 and figuring out who the hell I was. And then Xena came on the scene and I caught a clue. But what I wanted to say to you is that I have always thought you were amazeballs, okay? However, today I see you in a completely different light. And you are not just amazeballs, you are fucking amazing. And I can't be more proud of calling you my friend after everything that you've said today. And it gives me the chills just saying it over again, thinking back to that first day in New Orleans when I met you to today. And if I can be a tenth of what you are, my life is good. And I just wanted to say that.
You just do
and say
you,
thank
okay?
you.
You just do you. You be your amazing self. Each
Well, I
one of
try.
you, be your amazing selves. You're all amazing. You all inspire me.
And the
You
last
inspire
thing I
me.
wanted to say to you, well, it's not the last thing because I'll be giving you 6 hugs before we leave.
I'm going to count.
Is okay. You keep her honest, Cheryl. Is that when you're talking about us, and you were asking why do the authors and the readers come here? From that first day, 2 months before Katrina, in New Orleans, I found my tribe.
Yep.
And ever since then, I have never missed a conference. I've always been involved in this organization to whatever level I could possibly be involved in. And I wanted to thank people like you for keeping me involved, keeping my tribe together, and acknowledging that I'm okay and that
You're
I am
more
one
than
of us.
okay. We are all more than okay, folks. We are fabulous. Or as KL would say, we are fucking fabulous.
Mwah.
Love you, my friend. Love you, my friend. Anybody else? Yes. Hi, Kelly.
So I will admit that this is my 4th con. I've never come to the keynote speech. I'm sorry. I've sat here through the whole thing.
Georgia, she's sorry.
I am very sorry. I am very sorry. I don't like history. I hate it. Listening to you speak has given me so much perspective. And my question for you, because it really made me think, everybody that knows about the whole student loan thing that's going on and the forgiveness, and you have these 2 camps of, I had to fight, I had to pay my due, you should not get a free pass. And I'm wondering if you see the correlation between this generational idea of I had to fight, and so you should. I had it hard, so you should. If you see this correlation within the queer community of these people that did fight, and these amazing people that fought for all of these rights, and like in the trenches for, 10, 20, 30 years, saying, I had to fight, you should too. Why do you automatically just get a seat at the table without being there fighting? But they don't realize that they were invisibly fighting with no allies for so long. And I'm wondering if you see this correlation, and if you have anything to say to those people that believe, I fought, you should fight too. You should fight too.
Thank you for the question. Let me say a few things about that. First of all, nobody would say that to me, to my face. No. Second of all, let me say this. Again, this is not an us and a them. It's not a we had to work for it, you should have to work for it too. It's a here are the lessons we learned, let me give you a hand up. That's what we do. We help each other. We stand for each other because each time we stand for somebody else, we all stand taller and stronger, and all of our rights are protected. This isn't an us or them. It isn't a, I didn't get this, so why do you? It's like I had to walk to school backhill, backwards 5 ways of snow up and down, so you should have to do that instead of taking the bus too. Really? No. I mean, we fight for what we fight for. We fought for what we fought for to make the world a better place for us. We cannot make the world a better place for us if it's not better for everyone. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work, people. I don't know anybody who, I don't think I do, who would sit there and say that. Because, the truth of the matter is, just because it was a struggle for you, it was a struggle for you for a reason. Why would you want that to be a struggle for anyone else? You had to do it. Do not make someone else, start from scratch when we have all this data, all this information, all of these allies who can make us all stronger. It's like, I don't want to equate this to this. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. When you say, oh, they're not coming for me, so why should I care? By the way, I'm Jewish, and I lost people in the Holocaust. When you say, they're not coming for me, I'm going to hide right here, it's okay, I got a comfortable life. You are saying, I have no humanity. I don't care. That's what you're saying. But guess what? Eventually, they're going to come back for you again. Because we're in this together. All they're looking for is the weak link. Right now, they think trans kids are the weak link. Red meat for the base. This is what they're looking for. Don't give it to them. Don't help them. Don't enable them to other us. And don't other ourselves. Don't other ourselves. I don't feel strongly about this at all. Hi there, my friend.
Hi. I'm a little shorter than they are.
I'm a little shorter than everybody. I don't know what you're worried about.
Tip it way down. I had to do something to make myself stop crying from listening to you, because you're right. So I thought about it. The easiest thing I do I do other things, but the easiest thing I do to make a difference is all the books I buy that are not signed copies that I'm ready to pass on. I leave it in an Uber, on the bus, in a restaurant.
Good for you.
Not at the library, that doesn't count, but at the airport. And so the challenge I want to issue is that all of us, writers and readers and publishers, buy an extra book, leave it somewhere on your way home. And when
that's a
you're
great
done
one.
with books,
That's a great
pass
one.
them out that way.
And thank you for that. Did you all see the light bulb just go off over my head? Right? Talk to each other about best practices. Talk to each other about what you've done or what works for you, where you found ways to, influence and make change, and ways where you haven't. Talk to each other and brainstorm. We got brilliant minds in this room. Brilliant minds in this room. Figure it out. Talk to each other. Figure out how we can, this works, this doesn't work. This is how we make change, right? We find out what works and what doesn't work, and we just keep pushing harder and harder on the things that work. And then we have, we can get to the things that don't work quite so well, and then work on those to improve them. Hi, Kay.
Hi. So as a non-binary person at this con, I've had a lot of folks come up to me asking questions and being very nervous about not wanting to make a mistake. And, maybe there's someone in here who has never made a mistake.
It isn't me.
But I wonder if you have any advice for people on being brave and being comfortable with making the mistake, because that's part of the process, and building community that way.
That's a great question. Thank you for that. And thank you for being willing to help others understand better, because that really matters. I mean, that's just how we get better. We learn, right? And we learn by asking questions. It's a lifelong process. We learn by asking questions. We can't be afraid to make mistakes. We all make them. I make probably 20 in a day. But the important part is that you're trying. The key thing that I heard you say is that people want to be better, and they are trying. So on both sides, I would say there has to be room for error. I can't be in your skin. I can't be in my friends of color. I can't be in their skin. But I can try to understand what their lens is and what it looks like for them. And then I can be more helpful, and I can be a better ally, and I can do more things. Don't be afraid to ask the hard questions. And for those who are getting asked the questions, please, by God, don't be afraid to answer. Don't be afraid to, and sometimes it requires some vulnerability on both parts. But this is how we get better. If we don't talk to each other, if we feel differently and we don't talk to each other, and we don't figure out, we have so much more in common than we have that isn't common. We have to talk to each other. We have to respect each other more than anything else. We have to understand what someone else's lens is, what their experience is. And you only do that by being willing to be brave, by being willing to say, you know what, I don't understand this, or I don't know, but I want to know. Can you help me? One of my wonderful non-binary friends told me something very helpful yesterday that I'll pass along because I think it was so helpful. Carrie, this is a shout out to you, my friend. Thank you. I've known Carrie for 35 years. It's a long time. If you're not sure what someone's, how they identify, a really good way to go about this is to say, what are your pronouns? Ask the question. Ask the question. because it shows, first of all, that you actually truly care, and I know you all do. Could you help me to know your pronouns? What are your pronouns? And then try to get it right, right? I think that's, am I right, folks? That's helpful? That's helpful advice? Okay. Ask the question. Don't be afraid to ask the question, because in asking the question, we become better people. We become better citizens. We become better individuals. We become better allies. Hi.
Hi, I'm Cheryl.
Hi, Cheryl. I like that name.
Thank you.
Lovely name.
I heard that, and I was getting very confused talking about your wife, and I'm like,
did I marry her? Was I that drunk last night?
was I asleep
I didn't
at
think
some
I had that much to drink at karaoke. Damn. Okay.
I know like 2 other Cheryls, and now I know 3. I am a femme-presenting, non-binary person. I am an ace bisexual person who is married to a Puerto Rican man. I am a sneaky sneak, looking like I'm living the heteronormative life. I'm also part Irish, so I am gonna spin you a tale until I get to my question.
I got time.
Do you all have time? I am out to my husband, my 2 boys, my sister and her wife, and now also to all of you. Congratulations.
Let me say, on behalf of this entire community, welcome. We are your people.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't think Christina was ready for me to come up here and do this.
She totally was.
My sister is the amazing Christina Rivers. And she has helped me come out a little more and be who I am. And I'm still having problems with that. Growing up in the swampy hinterlands of coastal Florida.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You're like, I feel funny feelings with my best friend, and I don't know what to do with them. Oh my God.
We've all been there.
Right. Right.
That's a universal experience.
Right. And I didn't know. I didn't have any idea that was a normal thing until I joined the military and discovered a Navy girl who was like, hey, you're really hot. And I was like, oh, thank you.
What happens on the water stays on the water.
And this was during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So we were just like hopping around and hiding. And happily we weren't the group that got poison ivy on our nethers in the trees. You know what I'm talking about, Christina. Not that happened to her. She's fine.
Sure she is.
I'm so sorry. It totally wasn't her. It was actually a straight couple, LOL. So my question here, one more thing about me. I'm a library supervisor.
Yay! We love librarians.
And we are part of being on the front lines of the challenges and the pushing back. I'm lucky to work in a library system where our director tends to really support pushing back against challenges, and our collection development team pushes back against challenges. And we have a DEI person who is a trans woman, and she is incredibly great about helping us push back on all the challenges. My question is, when I get challenged, and it does happen, we all put out displays all year long. I have put out Georgia Beers and Melissa Braden and Christina Rivers on.
And Lynn Ames. Oh, wait.
Yeah, Lynn Ames, totally,
yeah, totally.
I don't
totally,
actually think
as soon as
our
I get home. Yeah.
I printed. I 100% will send pictures. I do put them on my Instagram, like, hey, look what I found in the wild. This is Chris Bryant, and this is
You put
EJ
Chris Bryant
Noyes.
there before me? Wait a minute. Whoa.
I'm out, bye.
Yeah. I'll see ya. Cut her off, please. No.
So until last year, I did not know how huge this community was. I am just one library supervisor. I printed out names from last year to find and pluck up and put in all of our displays and put in our staff recommends with a little name tag atop, saying who
I love
recommended
the
this.
subversiveness of this. Yes.
I told you, I'm a sneaky sneak.
Yeah.
I'm good at this.
I like it.
Guerrilla marketing, y'all.
It's a thing.
How, because I have had customers come to me in my face with a book in hand that I put on the shelf and say to me, how dare you?
You want to know what the answer is to that?
Well, I was going to punch him in the throat.
No.
But
I don't recommend that, or you won't be putting any more books on the shelves. And then we
Right.
lose our sneaky sneak.
then I'll be, right, then I'll be in prison.
That would be horrible.
I will be happy, but I'll be in prison. That's my question is, what is the best way to pull my mess together? I'm not going to say the bad word, because I saw Gallagher get called on the carpet about it. What is the best way to pull myself together and come back to them and be like, no, how dare you?
No.
Without getting fired.
That's not the answer.
It is not.
It's not the answer because they won't hear you.
No.
So
They
if
will
you
not.
want to be heard, you have to stay in your head and not in your heart in this particular instance. And in instances like this, when people challenge you like this, remember that they are triggered. Triggering back is not going to get you what you want. It's not going to get you where you're going. So to someone like that, I stand there and I say very calmly, sir, ma'am, whoever it happens to be, you are more than welcome not to have your child read this book. But there are other parents here who want their children to read this book. And that is why this book is here. If you don't want your child to read this book, that is your choice. Likewise, it is other parents' choice to have their children read this book. This is a choice. It is not a binary. See what I did there?
I see that. I like it.
Mercedes, my dear friend.
Yes, hi.
Hi, I love that.
You know, remember when we used to say your tagline, it's not all about you?
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking today, it's not all about you, but it was, because it was history in motion, including you. Yeah. I have been coming to the GCLS since its inception. The first person I saw at the Renaissance was Lynn Ames standing up at the top of the stairs, and I won't tell you what she was wearing and what I said.
Thank you.
Yeah, but GCLS has basically been my longest relationship. So you guys can give me gifts if you like. Okay. I helped
That comes later.
Oh, well, promises. I helped create the Convergents, who are now the newbies, and
Yes, it's
I've been on the
You
board.
have her to thank people for that.
And it's been a wonderful family. I came into it late through the military, and I was in intelligence and security, so definitely there was none of that. I was sharing with someone, when I first went in the military, they ask you these questions. There was like 5 or 6 questions that you have to answer. And one of them was, are you homosexual? So I put my hand up and I said, what is a homosexual? Because I didn't know.
Right.
Okay? And he said, well, if you don't know, you're not one. Just check.
Thank God.
Little did he and I know.
In this case,
a
it was
big
good that you
ol'
didn't have the language.
Yeah, I was a big old homosexual. But I really didn't have I do have a question, but the turmoil that we're experiencing right now, and I'm from Florida also, and if I did not have family that was grounded and rooted and buried there, I wouldn't be there. I've actually thought about being expat, but that hurts my heart.
I
Plus, I'd
understand
have
that.
to travel a
I
long way to come
understand
see you
why.
guys.
That's
Yeah.
home. I
So,
get it.
how do we fortify ourselves? I mean, it's just coming and coming and coming. What, the last 3 to 5 days?
Head spinning, isn't it? It's head
Yes.
spinning.
So how do we fortify ourselves and encourage each other and get together and see what we can do?
Good question. Thank you, my friend. And it's always good to see you here.
You too.
By the way. So here's what I think. We do what we can, and then we recharge, and then we charge again, and then we retreat and we recharge, and we charge again. But we don't all retreat at the same time. We come at them in waves, and waves, and waves. We have to get ourselves away from the place where we feel helpless and hopeless, because helplessness and hopelessness gets us nowhere except for further buried than we already are. We fight back in little ways, like putting up displays in library shelves, like leaving books in taxi cabs. We do the little things because all of the little things add up to the big things. If we're not out and we feel like we're at a place where we can, we come out. We have the hard discussions. Maybe it's one person at a time. Maybe it's two people at a time. Maybe it's one person who tells another person. Maybe it is as simple as going to a school board meeting and sitting there and listening and bearing witness and letting them see that you're there. You don't have to say a word. You know me, I'm going to say something. Cheryl's going to say something, man, and they're going to listen to her. You know, I have to say, I followed one of the school board members before the public comment. I followed her into the restroom. Why? Because I have no sense of direction, and she looked like she knew where she was going. I'm following you. You know where you're going. And when we came back and they did the public comment, and the vitriol was so extensive, 10 people, 3 minutes at a time, going on and on and on and on, and it felt so personal. She made eye contact with me and said, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." And I wanted to say to all those people, and this is something we can all say, you know, especially, I'm a lesbian, right? I wanted to say, you have been going to the frickin' bathroom with me for 62 years. 62 years. I don't know what you do in the bathroom, but I gotta pee. And by the way, I'm the one opening the door for you so you don't have to grind me up your hands again. You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm like, have I ever done anything to you in the bathroom? No, but I'm a relatively femme-presenting person and I can get away with it. So you don't feel threatened by me. But guess what? I'm a threat to you as much as anybody else in this room. Get over your bad old selves. Seriously, people. Bathrooms are for going to the bathroom, usually. Unless you've got your back against the, you listen too well. Unless you're looking under the stall and you're stealing a kiss. It was a kiss, okay? We have to do the little things. The micro things add up to the macro. The micro things add up to the macro. And when you feel like you are disheartened and you can't, you just can't today, then don't today, but do it tomorrow. Don't do it today, do it tomorrow. Call your best friend. Do something that makes you feel good about yourselves. And vote. Validate yourself and vote. Yes. For God's sake, yes. Vote.
I'm getting
one of the things that we do, one of the things that Cheryl and I have chosen to do, because we sit here and we have the same conversations you're having. What can we do? We've been registering voters in North Carolina. We've been having discussions with people who they have tried to disadvantage by making them have voter ID and all this bullshit to keep people of color from voting. Screw that. Yeah. We've been having conversations. We've been helping them get registered, helping them get their voter ID to make sure they know exactly what hoops they need to jump through, as if they should have to vote in this country, in our state, do these things. There are things you can do. You can text banks. You can, whatever makes you comfortable. And those you do anonymously. Nobody knows you're doing it. We spent, 2 hours the other night writing letters, personal letters to voters who were at risk of missing the election because they want you to miss the election.
Right.
We wrote personal letters. We used our own stamps, our own envelopes, our own stuff, and we sent those letters out to a list that was given to us by a really nice, there's a group in every state organizing this stuff, people. Just Google it. Find the organization in your county, in your state, whatever it is. Help get other people to vote.
Yes.
We only change this if we can change the conversation. This is 11 idiots in a room. More voice than us? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Do the little things. You can take an hour at a time. It will make you feel better. And it will make a difference. We have to make a difference. You're right, Karen. We have to make a difference at the ballot box. We have to get these idiots out of the state houses, out of the school boards. They just passed a resolution to gerrymander our school board because they don't like the fact that it's diverse. Seriously, people, the school board, run for the school board. Do something. Just little bits at a time. Do what you are able. Self-care is important, folks. Self-care is important. But one conversation, one mind changed at a time changes the world. It changes the world. Each one of us can change one mind. How many people have we done, right? Ripples out through the universe. And by all means, take good care of yourselves in the process. I will happily come to Florida and do a book signing, honey.
All right.
Why?
I will
Because
try
I'm going
to
to
arrange
represent.
that. Yes.
I'm
can
going to
arrange that.
represent. Let me say kudos to Betsy and the board for making the decision you made.
Yes.
That was
Thank
absolutely
you.
the right choice.
That was absolutely the right decision.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm a woman of a certain
Thank
age,
you.
so I forgot
but
something.
individual authors, I would say to you, if you feel comfortable or you can, show up for our Florida friends. Show them that we're here. Show people in Florida that we're not going to back down. You cannot erase us. We will not be erased. As an individual, I'm happy to do that, to help our community. Whatever we can do to help those folks is important. And it doesn't mean risking our lives as a collective organization or feeling unsafe to do it. And it doesn't mean, letting the entire apparatus have anything of ours.
I'm a woman of a certain age, so I forgot to share. I do write the letters and stuff, but one thing I really enjoy doing is when I'm out walking, you see those little libraries, and it gives me great pleasure at some of them to really put a book in there, too. So that's what I do.
People workshop ideas like that. Talk to each other. Find best practices. Talk to each other. Work it out. Hi, Tegan.
Hey, Lynn.
Oh, make that taller for you.
I'm a little bit taller.
Go ahead, show off. Make it taller for you.
So the thing that really struck me about what you said was the aspect of community. I think a lot of us come to GCLS because of this community. I love doing these events. I love doing the Sapphic Lit pop-up events because I love to sell my friends' books. I love to talk about my friends' books because y'all are all my friends and I think you're fucking awesome. I think you're awesome. So I think like that was my takeaway, is support the community. I also love how you talk on the history, because what's really striking to me is I came out in the late 90s, and all the words that they're using now about our trans siblings, they used about me.
Exactly.
Groomer, pedophile.
Exactly.
All of that stuff, and that's why it's so important for us to stick together with all of the letters. Stick together with our trans and non-binary siblings, because they did it to us, and now they're convincing some of us to do it to each other. And that's the part that hurts for me, is that some of the other letters are letting the tea go And that is something we cannot do. And I love that you spoke on that. I don't have a question.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to take one more question in a minute. We're going to wrap it up. I don't know about you. I'm getting hungry. Yes. What they did to us, they will do to others. And they will keep doing it until we stop them from doing it. And we have the power as a community to stop them from doing it. We have the power to educate ourselves so that when we accidentally do something we don't mean to do, we can fix it, right? We have to be better. All of us have to be better. We have to stand up as one because they can't target all of us at the same time. You know, they want to pick you off as individuals. Think of it that way. It's like a shooting gallery. It isn't going to work. Hi, Anna. Last question.
Hello.
I can't see. Oh, yes.
It's
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just being told to wrap it up, so I'm trying.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. I'm sorry. I can't see through that light. Yes, you bet.
Okay, it's actually a story, and I will make it quick. I'll talk faster than I did in my
Well,
author
thank God.
spotlight.
You know, if you were like
yes,
an author or something, it would take forever.
I know. It touches on the mistakes issue that she lovely. I'm sorry, I forget your name. I've met you a couple of times, but I'm sorry.
Kagan.
You touched on. 2 weeks ago, I went to Pride Night at Dodger Stadium, and it was surrounded in controversy because they had initially invited a group called the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. For those of you who don't know, they dress up as nuns, and then they go around into the community to show them that religion is not this horrible, terrible thing trying to beat them down. If I was Catholic growing up, or actually I was Catholic growing up, if I had had nuns like that, I would have loved going to church. They got disinvited.
Hell, I was Jewish. I would have gone to church.
Yeah. They got disinvited. And
Yeah,
there
I
was a
saw.
huge hoopla. And I agreed that they should not have been disinvited. And a week later, the Dodgers said, we screwed up. We're re-inviting them because they were listening to the wrong groups. They were listening to people outside of the state in other groups that had nothing to do, that their whole purpose is to put down the LGBTQ community. So they re-invited them. I was happy to hear that. I have two major groups in my life. I have this group and I have a softball team. Yes, exactly. When I found the post that they had re-invited them, I told this group, everybody I knew was like, yes, they fixed it, great. Half of my softball team was like, I'm still not going to Pride Night, I'm still upset. And I was just like, people are flawed. Corporations, organizations are flawed.
Low target.
Yes, and I was just like, what the hell are we fighting for if we can't allow people to make mistakes and then come back and say, we fucked up, we are fixing this? So, yes.
I'm going to say one quick thing on that because I feel very strongly about this, and then I'm going to take the last question. Thank you for waiting. Corporations, we need them to stand up with us and for us. They are the voices that aren't in government right now. Money talks, people. Money talks. And yes, they're going to screw up. You bet they will. Yes. But when we say, no, we'll buy only from our own, we won't support corporations because we think they're commercializing us, they may be. But here are a couple things about that. Number one, they're going to find out that by doing that, they're going to make a lot of money. They're in business to make money. We have dollars to spend. We are an important constituency to them. We have to show them just how important we really are. They will support us if it makes monetary sense for them. I'm sorry, that's a cold, hard truth. Please do not put yourself in the position where you're unwilling to be supportive, even if you don't think they're doing it for the right reason, let me tell you something. Nothing in politics happens for the right reason. It happens because it's expedient. It may well be expedient for these companies to do what they're doing, to sell Pride merch, to do whatever else it is. You feel like you're being exploited? You're exploiting them, too. Please, by all means, if a company is being supportive or you think you can make a difference there, make the difference. Bring them on board. We need their push. We need their power, and we can harness it for good. Thank you so much.
Not a question, just a comment.
Sure.
I'm a trans woman. Most of you probably figured that out because I don't pass. And I have never felt anything but welcomed here. And
as you are, and
thank
as
you
you
for
should
being
be.
amazing. And thank you for recognizing my ancestors in your keynote.
You're very welcome. Thank them.
And I haven't always been welcomed in spaces like this, so thank you for welcoming
You are
me.
always welcome here, my friend. You are always welcome here. We are your people. Thank you all so much for your attention, for your time, for your energy, for your love, for each other, for this community, and maybe for me. Maybe. I love you all so much, and I'm so proud to be part of you. Thank you for letting me be part of you. Lunch is now, folks. I'm told that lunch is now. Grub is on.